And it's clear as day right now, Marvel Comics has a creative problem. They don't really have any good writers. They might have one A-lister left. His name is Jonathan Hickman, and I don't know that I would even consider Jonathan Hickman an A-lister at this point. We did see what happened with Gods. But at one point, they had 3 absolute A-listers locked up, creating awesome stuff for them, and they managed to drive them all the way. I'm talking about Mark Millar, Ed Brubaker, Rick Remender, who should be the 3 senior writers, those A-listers that are driving all the sales, so you don't have to put Zeb Wells on freaking Spider-Man. You don't have to put Jed McKay on everything. You would actually have 3 awesome writers, and they've managed to drive them off and alienate every single one of them.
Yeah, I mean, hell, you could even throw Brian Michael Bendis in because they drove him off too.
This is what Mark Millar said in a Twitter post from 2011. To put it in perspective, 8 issues of Kick-Ass paid me more than every issue I'd written for Marvel added together, even without the movie. Millar also added later that his Nemesis series with Steve McNiven brought him twice as much money as what he earned writing Marvel's Civil War years earlier. You think about the stuff that Mark Millar did for Marvel Comics. His Ultimates was absolutely amazing. It is the blueprint of what the Avengers are in the MCU, i.e. it generated billions upon billions of dollars. His Old Man Logan stuff really rejuvenated that character, created another movie that was very, very successful. Almost everything that he did that was original at Marvel, where he took concepts and created new ideas around them, ended up generating them within hundreds to billions of dollars time and time again, and yet they still didn't fucking pay the guy.
Mark's the kind of guy, he is absolutely a franchise player level sales juggernaut at the big
He should be their number 1 writer right now.
Absolutely. I honestly,
he's the biggest fucking nerd in the world. There's nobody that loves these characters more than Mark Millar, and I know he loves his original creator-owned stuff, but he is in love with characters like Spider-Man and Captain America and stuff like that. To drive him away took a lot of effort.
He created Miller World while he was still doing multiple monthly books. He did Kick-Ass, he did Wanted, he did The Unfunnies, and there was another one all at the same time while still doing multiple monthly comics for Marvel. If he really wants the money, just the money, he would have left many years before. Once he realized how much money he could make doing creator-owned stuff. But no, he stuck around because he loves the characters. He didn't even mind getting underpaid. He just didn't want to get raked over the fucking coals. It would have made sense to give somebody like that back-end money. You hit these kind of absurd sales numbers, and we're going to give you a bonus. You're going to get profit sharing. You're going to get something out of the books that you are making into marquee sales drivers.
Because they still have, I guess, PTSD over the Image Comics thing, you know, and the deal that specifically like a Rob Liefeld has, they've made it their mission to just completely screw people over. Mark Millar sold Miller World, obviously, to Netflix. He's essentially a Netflix executive at this point. He doesn't need money from writing comic books. He doesn't need to write comic books at all. At this point, he's, you know, a C-suite type of executive kind of guy. Yet he still puts out essentially 3 ongoings worth of material every single year as an executive at Netflix because he loves writing comic books that much.
Yeah, the man is absolutely in love with the comic book medium. While he loves movies, he loves TV, and he wants to see his creations adapted into other media. He loves comic books. The man is a fanboy at the end of the day, and you're basically giving him his dream. All you got to do is not completely fuck him over. And
what is it about the Rob Liefeld experience that has turned Marvel so against paying their creators what they're worth?
I think it's not even just Rob. There's Rob. There's people like probably the Simonsons. I know Chris Claremont, where they get a lot of a decent bit of money for collected editions of their stuff, and they hate having to pay somebody twice. Marvel, for whatever reason, don't want to pay people twice. They want to pay them for the thing that they created when they're creating it, and they want to never look back again. Somebody like Liefeld, they really don't like the fact that he has royalties on his stuff. Jim didn't really get that. Even Todd didn't get that kind of stuff. Rob was a more shrewd businessman. I mean, It was the early 2000s whenever they straight up canceled both Cable and Deadpool because of how pissed off they were that they still had to pay Rob whenever they were publishing those titles. They replaced Cable with Soldier X, and they replaced Deadpool with, Agent X, just so they didn't have to fucking pay Rob. They are a spiteful company when they think that somebody has gotten over on them. They just don't like the fact that they don't fully own everything that you created. Remember, this is still the same company that Jack Kirby had to sue to get his original art back.
This is what Ed Brubaker had to say when talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier when it was coming up on Disney Plus. It's just so weird that they're so ungenerous to me. It's especially weird because a lot of them are friends of mine or people that I thought were friends of mine. There's a corporate mentality. Right now, someone inside Marvel Publishing somewhere is watching this and laughing that I think I got ripped off. There are people that think it's funny that I'm unhappy about it. I know for a fact because I've watched them be that way about other people in person, and also saying, I think along the lines that it makes him sick to see the trailers and everything, knowing that he never really fully got compensated. Ed Brubaker created an idea that generated them just $1 billion right on a movie alone. How many more $1 billion ideas did Ed Brubaker have that they left on the table because they were fucking idiots?
You had a couple of rules in comics. The only people that stay dead are Jason Todd, Bucky, and Uncle Ben. He managed to take Bucky off that list. Any other attempt to take Bucky off the list and bring him back to life would have been met with absolute scorn and ridicule from the readership. But Ed managed to do it in a way that not only did were they able to bring Bucky back, they also made him a wholly new character that made him so much better than Cap's sidekick ever was. Not only that, but you got how many movies, you've gotten a TV show. Winter Soldier's still alive to this day in the comics. Not only that, but he managed to become Captain America. If they would have followed Ed's blueprint even longer on Captain America and made Bucky into the new Cap, I guarantee we wouldn't be sitting around talking about, well, Captain America Brave New World had a good first weekend and then it dropped off a fucking cliff and is going to end up losing money. They would have another $1 billion movie right now if they would have just followed Ed's blueprint. And then you could also see, in addition to the billions that he did generate, you can look at what you generate without him, where you deviated and where you stopped generating money. So not only is it billions in revenue generation, it's also at least probably $500 million in lost opportunity cost.
And I love Ed Brubaker, and I love Criminal. It's a wonderful universe. I'm glad that we're going to be getting a Criminal show on Amazon, I believe. Really, really cool stuff. And I don't think that we had to have Criminal or something with akin to what happened with Captain America Winter Soldier. We could have had both if Marvel simply respected the fact that they realized Ed Brubaker is a fucking A-lister. Ed Brubaker was the future of the company, but they never treated him like that. And now you can see that he clearly doesn't feel very good about it. And he knows these dickheads that have no talent are sitting there talking shit about him behind the scenes because they've never generated anything like he could. And he was able to walk away and say, fuck it, I don't want to work with these guys anymore.
Ed Brubaker has shown from the time he left until today, he is good enough to work in a lot of other industries. I mean, Criminal is great, but I feel like his talent is being wasted on noir, which, while really good, has a ceiling in revenue generation. Whereas superhero stories, I don't think we've seen the ceiling yet on what an amazing superhero story can generate revenue-wise.
Now, the last person we'll talk about is Rick Remender. He's a little bit different. I don't know that every idea that he has is quite as money-worthy, blockbuster-worthy as maybe a Ed Brubaker or a Mark Millar. But if he was the number 3 at Marvel right now, they would be in a great position. But he's not. This is what he recently said. I've recently turned down very generous offers to write X-Men and Batman. And while flattered, that would ultimately be a step backwards artistically and not where my heart is at. Image takes no ownership, so my partners and I can co-own 100% of our properties. It's short-term versus long-term thinking. You want to build your own house, make something that your children will inherit. Image is the only place This contract is me saying that I bet on myself, I bet on my collaborators, I bet on our character stories and owning what we make exclusively with all we've got, like our lives are on the line. And he's been very, very outspoken about his time at Marvel. We know that he was treated very, very poorly, screwed over behind the scenes, way worse, I think, than even Ed Brubaker or Mark Millar were. And he's had so many really cool ideas in the indie sphere. Like the one that I can think of right now, go read Black Science. And yes, it's a much darker thing that you would probably ever see at Marvel. But you have the blueprint or the backbone of a pretty fucking badass Fantastic Four run there. And Marvel could have had that. They could have had an amazing Fantastic Four run with Rick Remender, but they didn't appreciate him either.
I feel like this is the exact same situation, but even worse than Brubaker, because he doesn't love it as much as a guy like Brubaker, and definitely as much as a guy like Mark Millar. I feel like him knowing that how hard they're screwing their creators over behind the scenes is even more hurtful to him, because that's what he really cares about. He cares about the art and having ownership of his art and getting compensated for his art.
Marvel under C.B. Cebulski, Tom Brevoort, Dan Buckley are acting like we're still in the 70s, and that's the deals that they're offering people out there. We are not in the 70s anymore. Multimedia is out there. These things are being adapted to other mediums, and they're generating tons more money in those mediums than they are in comic books. If you are not going to compensate the creator of the idea, you are no longer going to get good ideas. And that's why these guys have all walked away. You listen to what they had to say, it all comes back. I wasn't respected. I wasn't monetarily compensated. I had no ownership in any of my ideas, and fuck these guys, because they'll never change. And if Marvel never changes and they never adapt to the times, we will continue on with what we have right now, which is an absolute desert of fucking creative ideas. There's nothing there. There's nothing alive, nothing living. It's all just barren wasteland right now when it comes to creative at Marvel, because anybody that can create an idea that's worth any money refuses to work with them, because they refuse to acknowledge that movies and streaming and video games and all this other stuff exists out there. And they refuse to put them in their deals because they're fucking idiots.
Well, I feel like this is, it's one of the reasons why Marvel fits so well with Disney. Disney fucks their creators. So unless you end up an executive producer, unless you're getting EP credits, or you're now like C-suite, unless you get to an executive level, you get fucked hard. That's where it is with these creators.
Brubaker should have been an EP on fucking Captain America, The Winter Soldier. He probably should have got another one for Civil War, because they incorporated a lot of his stuff into there. Mark Millar certainly should have gotten one for Civil War. He certainly should have gotten one for Logan. He certainly should have gotten one for the first Avengers movie, because they did lift a lot of his ideas directly from that, and they never got that credit and that paycheck that comes along with it. It's bullshit.
Absolutely. I feel like Marvel's leadership has kind of gotten that Disney mindset. Well, you're not even in Hollywood, so you're so far below us. There's absolutely no reason why we should be compensating you. You're no different than a fucking storyboarder. That's the way that they look at these comic creators. They're no better than an animator sitting on an assembly line in fucking Korea animating a cartoon for them by hand. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if the editors have actually convinced corporate that they're the ones responsible for it. So why the fuck should we be, compensating these writers? All they're doing is executing the editor's vision anyway. They're not doing anything creative. I don't think that Disney or Warner Brothers or any of these other big corporations realize how much they're shooting themselves in the fucking foot by not treating these people fairly. I mean, are you going to get a movie that literally anyone will see out of Leah Williams, out of Tinny Howard, out of Joanne Starer, out of Steve Orlando, out of Steve Fox? Are you going to get anything that anybody will ever pay money to go see out of any of their ideas? Hell no. But instead, hey, let's fuck over the people that did make something, because we still have more that we can mine out of it. We'll worry about that problem down the line. That's where it seems like it is.
One thing's for certain, Marvel had the future in the palm of their hands. They had all the A-listers that they would need for another decade or two, and they drove them all off, and I do not blame them. I'm glad that Mark Millar, Ed Brubaker, and Rick Remender have found greener pastures and more success and more acclaim in other places and certainly get to own their own ideas and stuff like that. But it didn't need to be this way. And it's certainly on Marvel for really screwing this up. If you like the entire conversation, because we did go long on this one, we had to edit it down for YouTube. You do need to go to Think Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description. The Doc Unfiltered show, you'll get this entire conversation, as well as our conversation regarding Marvel gaslighting people over Peter Parker and MJ again. Really great stuff there. Hope to see you very, very soon.